It's time to talk music, audio gear, and anything else that crosses our minds. I'm Mark.
And I'm Peter.
And welcome to the Hurton Audio Podcast.
So today we've got another really special treat for you. We are joined by Snuba. Do you want to say hi, guys?
Hello. Hi.
So you've just released an EP, and I'm very curious to know sort of where did that come from? Because we're friends with a lot of like musicians, and they never release anything. If I'm being honest, it sounds tight. It sounds horrible for me to say, but I'm friends with loads of music producers and like musicians, and they never actually get to this release part. And I saw you guys put out your EP, and I was like, oh my God, they released an EP. Like, I know so many people who've been doing music for such a long time, and that's still something they haven't done. So what's like the story behind it?
It's been quite a fairly long but quite organic journey, I think.
So sort of during lockdown, I started writing and recording like a lot of my own songs, and then Asa kind of already made his own music.
So I had sort of like experience like recording music and stuff, and so I showed you like how to work like Ableton and stuff, or how to work Audacity probably first,
to start with, and then just had a lot of time on my hands and started just recording a bunch of songs. And then at that point we were like living in two different countries, but then when we were back in the same place, we sort of wanted to see if we could have a go at collaborating on something together.
Because Annie can write songs like just like nobody's business, just so quickly and naturally. Like, to me it seems like magic. I just like come home, she'll be like, oh yeah, I've just like written and recorded this song. And I'll listen to it like, yeah, it's good. But then I think you wanted sort of a bit more like polish.
Yeah, I'm very like, don't have very perfectionist tendencies. Like, I just make things very fast and just sort of don't want to polish them, and just sort of finish things off quite fast. And then Ace much more like wants to really work on things slowly and take his time. So it's kind of
we definitely complement each other's sort of natural like workflows.
I think that is like a really, really handy thing though to have in like music making, because you've got somebody like setting up all these sparks of inspiration, and somebody else to say, right, I'm gonna work on these and refine them. So instead of like, because the person refining is never going to start anything normally, and the person with all the sparks of inspiration won't normally finish stuff. So you've actually got like a really lucky balance there between you.
For sure, yeah. And so we ended up, we sort of picked out a few songs from, you had sort of like 20, 30 songs maybe. And we picked out 6 and thought, right, let's like really work on these, get these good. It felt like a achievable number, because it's so easy to kind of like start a project, but we thought let's actually do this, let's start it and aim to actually like make a realistic challenge for us.
I think that's the hardest part though, because what a lot of people have is they have all these grand ideas to start something, and when it comes to like looking at you've say burned out 6 mixes and you're looking at them in like iTunes or whatever, and you're like, oh, but I don't know if I want to release these. And then that's where a lot of people go, no, I can't, I'm not doing it, I back out, and then nothing ever happens like in an official capacity.
So we just thought, let's keep it simple, keep it to these 6 songs, and then we finished them and we liked them. Yeah. We were like, well, we if we think it's good, you know, and we wanted to kind of do something to kind of bookend this process. So like, you know, we started it as like a limited project, and then wanted to like just have a full stop at the end of it, and thought, well, we may as well put it out online. The
only way to really feel that something's finished is by releasing it and then being okay, wow, it's too late to change it. That's gone.
Because I could tinker with mixes and the drums and everything. I could do that forever. And so it was good to have like a goal of properly closing the lid on the project.
Yeah, because once it's out in the world, like you say, it doesn't matter. I mean, you can keep working on it in your spare time, but that is the definitive version once it's actually been distributed. So I do think that's the best way to like get closure on like a project. Me and Mark's been working on like a 10-song album. It's been the same thing. Just you're going around in circles, and you're like, we're never gonna finish this thing. That's how it feels sometimes.
Yeah.
So you were speaking about Audacity and then jump into Ableton. What was the sort of, at what point was you in Audacity and you was like, this isn't going to cut it, we need to go to Ableton? And then part two to that question, was you, because I know you're from quite a musical family, Asa, was Ableton already on your radar, and was it obvious to you, or did you actually find it on like this journey of discovering what you want to make this album with, or this EP with? Sorry.
So I started with Audacity just like years and years ago, just sort of like recording a bit of my own music, and at the time it was all like acoustic stuff, like recorded into like with acoustic guitar, like recorded into a mic, and then I would apply all sorts of effects to it and make it into something a bit more experimental, a bit crazy, yeah. But I was like, but I wasn't using any MIDI or anything, because that's not really a functionality in Audacity. But I really loved this kind of sounds I could create with it. But eventually, I wanted to have a go at some like live looping things.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of just a bit of Googling and research and found that Ableton was supposedly sort of the door to do that in. So I just sort of downloaded it and had to play around with it, and then ended up sort of using it for, and so I had a period of time where I'd use it for drums as well. I'd sort of create a little drum track and then take that into Audacity and then record in there, because I kind of had my workflow there. I knew how to make the sounds I liked.
So you were sort of using Ableton almost like to build parts of the music and parts of the stuff, so you could then continue doing what you was doing in Audacity. Is it like 8 tracks Audacity? I can't remember how many tracks.
I think it's as many tracks as you want.
Oh, is
but
it?
The big difference is that all the effects that you put on in Audacity are permanent. Like they change the waveform of your track. You can't switch things off or fiddle around with them to get like the perfect sound. And so I had loads of a lot of what I did and how I like made certain effects it was all just in my head, in my memory. I was like, remember you've got to do this one, you got to do this effect twice, and then I like add the distortion, and then I add the reverb again, or you turn there's one thing where you turn the amplitude like way down, and then apply like really hard distortion. It creates like a cool like crackly effect. I had all these like little sort of self-worked out tricks to make these sounds. But eventually, once I was playing around in Ableton more, you learn to appreciate the ability to go back on your decisions.
Yeah, because a lot of people, even like down to like the pros, don't commit anything to audio. Like they leave everything so they can tweak absolutely everything, and that's partially why it's hard to finish an idea, because you go, well, not only is the song sort of up in the air on what it actually is, but all your mix effects are also tweakable and not sort of determined. So you was actually like doing it on extremely hard, almost Beatles mode.
Yeah, and it meant that you did have a bit of a time limit for finishing a song, because if you left it too long, you'd forget how you made something. And the way that I work is often like from the start, sort of going in like 100% detail from the start, and then just sort of like procedurally working my way through to the end.
Yeah.
And so if I forget how I did the guitar sounds for the first chorus, when I then get around to recording the second chorus, I need to remember how I did that. Otherwise, I can't make the song sound like the same all the way through.
Oh, that is actually a nightmare. I never thought about the workflow being like that.
Yeah, it was like in a way it did have its advantages of that you can't sort of hang around and you can't get too caught up tweaking things, but I think the advantages of being able to tweak do outweigh the downsides.
And it just means you've got such a head start on your next song that you're like, oh, if I want to make this sound, then I know how to do it. I can copy stuff over. Rather than you were starting from scratch every single time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because on a lot of the DAWs, particularly in Cubase and stuff, and I'm sure you could do this. Oh, you can in Ableton because you can make like a big group and then save that group as like a preset. Yeah. So like you say, if you're making these like really reverberant and complicated guitar chains, you can just save that as like your guitar chain and then pull it up on your next session and boom, like you say, that full amount of work, you've just done it in like a second, like 2 mouse clicks.
Yeah. And so once I'd kind of moved on to Ableton, that's when Annie started recording her songs in that.
Yeah, so originally I was also doing kind of acoustic guitar, singer-songwriter stuff, but the problem is that I don't have the talent on guitar that meets the vision I have in my brain. So by moving to MIDI, it just allowed me to just make the sounds that I couldn't make in the real world, and it was just a lot more satisfying to have that level of control.
Yeah, and I think that's something that a lot of people sort of struggle with. Like we're very ambitious when we make music, and there's nothing worse than being like, I've got this thing in my head, this song in my head, and I can't put it down. Like, you know, you don't have either the theory knowledge or the actual playing knowledge to put it down, and that can be really frustrating, like from a creative standpoint. So like what I struggle to actually pinpoint the sound of your EP. And the EP is called Have My Head as well, for anybody, because we haven't actually said that either yet. And I thought it was like trip hop, shoegaze, like a little bit indie in there. Is that sort of, does any of that mean anything, like in terms of what you was aiming for, and what was the influences like individually? Because Annie, you're writing the songs and Asa's coming in and producing. So do you have like a different sort of set of influences to Asa, and is there like a compromise that sort of happens there?
Yeah, so in terms of writing, like a lot of the inspirations going in were a kind of pop, indie pop, people like Baby Queen, Phineas. These are like people I was listening to. The National, we're both big fans of, and that was like a big inspiration for like the song Keep Talking in particular. So that's kind of what I was bringing into from the writing side. And then
like production side, I think it's kind of similar as well. Like we listen to like a lot of the same music, and definitely like I think the National's a big one sort of production wise.
You're really listening to the drums.
Yeah. It was, and it kind of that works well as well with like how, because Annie would sort of make basically kind of like a demo of the song, the whole thing. And so I'd be able to keep certain elements from those, like you do like the drums, and they'd sort of have a bit more of like an electronic MIDI sound feel to them.
Yeah.
And something I quite like that in sort of the later National albums happens a lot is that they'll have like the drum machine and then bring in the drum kit sort of over the top. Yeah. And so the way that Annie had sort of done the drum machine drums, and then I could kind of write in like a more of a natural sounding drum kit pattern sort of over that, and sort of mix those two. And so there's things like that which have influenced the production style, I think. Yeah.
It is hard when you have to like explain what you've done as well, though, because it's hard to think about it all in one go and think, well, how did we get from A to B? Because a lot of the time what me and Peter will have is you'll have like, I want to smash these 4 songs I like together, and then this is like a lyric or a riff or whatever that is the vehicle to attempt to do this thing that you're initially starting out to do. And then sometimes you'll listen to it and you'll go, was nowhere near any of the 4 songs, because it ends up being something different depending on how wildly different the songs are in your mind. Like sometimes we'll take like an 80s classic rock song and then like a brand new song that's come out like a month or two ago by like a far more well produced artist, and try and like think about that as like the starting point. And then you look and go, well, it's kind of got bits of this and kind of got bits of that, but we ended up somewhere completely different. And then sometimes you just have an idea and you don't really know what the influence is. You're just like, well, if I was to listen to it back, I can think, well, it's sort of in these boxes, but it you can't pinpoint where the idea sort of come from.
Yeah, you can sort of reverse engineer, imagine what it could have been, but it wasn't actually an influence at the time.
Yeah, I think that's that's sort of where you take influence from is definitely, I think, especially when you're kind of starting out, working out like how you make certain sounds.
Yeah.
Like it is useful to have like a song as like a reference point and go, I want it to sound like this, and then in some effects just try and just sort of listen to it and like try your best to kind of copy that sound. And because you're not a professional, what you'll end up coming out with will sound completely different, but like in that process you'll have learned a lot.
Yeah, and it can be really overwhelming when you just don't have any ideas at the start. I find it helpful just to listen to a song and be like, okay, this is where the bass comes in. Oh, this is where the drums come in. And you don't need to stick to it like completely, but just as a sort of way of
sort of studying like how do songs,
what is the structure
what this song makes me feel this way, what's it doing to make it to achieve that, and then sort of picking it apart in terms of the song, the effects in it, the instruments and the structure. You can make quite an academic sort of process out of it. Yeah,
and you can break the rules at any time, but when you have nothing to go on, it's good to just choose something and stick to it, at least for a part of the process.
I think that's the best way to have a fun start and make it fun. I mean, sometimes we'll try and pastiche something and you're doing it and I think the worst thing that can happen is if you get too close to an idea, like you're making a track or like you're making a demo for a track, and you're like, oh no, I think I'm using the same chords now. And then you're like, oh no.
Yeah, this is literally the same.
Yeah, and then you're like, I've got to really pivot, otherwise I'm in trouble.
Yeah. Well, the better you get, the less you're allowed to do that. Like once you're actually good, like capable enough to copy a song and like perfectly, then you need to stop doing that. You've learned enough by that point. Yeah.
But it's like no, sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say, when I first started learning to play the guitar, it would literally be learn one song, then with those will now be the only chords I know. So write a song with those exact chords.
Yes.
Learn another song. Now you've learned 2 more chords. So you can write a song that have those 6 chords. And it's literally just taking them all as they come, but because no one's ever going to hear those songs, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's the great thing with like art, isn't it? You can sort of start and you can be very naive like when you start. And I think everybody who is creative in some capacity, when you do start whatever that is, you are naive because you don't know, you don't have your 1,000 hours, you don't have any sort of muscle memory. You're just sort of going, oh, I don't know anything about like music or this instrument, but these are the chords I know. Can I put them in a different sequence to what like I've heard them in or actually played them in before? And that's like, that can be like the most creative time, because I think there's definitely a point where you can get so like knowledgeable that you can then be like, oh, I can't use them 4 chords because this song uses them. And then all of a sudden you start like blocking your creative roots before you even start making an idea, which, as like Ed Sheeran sort of found in Court, you can't really trademark chord progressions because there's like 12 notes. There's only so many good chord progressions in the first place, and if people didn't write songs in I think it's 1-5-6-4, that's one of the most popular chord progressions if you're using the theory for it. If people didn't write them songs, then songs just wouldn't come out.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that's tough with it as well is like I suppose this is typical drummer stuff. I don't retain as much theory as Peter does, so Peter will be a lot more locked on to like chord progressions and theory and like cadences of stuff. So I often will use MIDI just to come up with an idea. If I'm going to write it purely myself, just on like a piano roll. But then Peter will come in and be like, oh, that's cool. I see you've done this and you've done that. And I'll go, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just doing what sounded good to me without really thinking about, like, musicality-wise, what exactly every chord is and how, you know, like the intervals relate to each other. But I know roughly what I'm trying to do. And then sometimes I'll be like, I've finally done it. And people will be like, that's 1, 5, 6, 4. And I'll be like, oh, that's real simple. Basic. But I am better at a lot of that stuff now. But yeah, sometimes I won't really be thinking about it. And then, like you say, it's hard because I suppose in a way I'm quite good for that, like chords and melodic naivety in what we do, because I don't have such an iron lock on all the melodic stuff as Peter does. So I'm like the ideas man, I suppose.
I don't know why I somehow just got really good at music theory, and then it's like a blessing and a curse, because you like working on an idea and you're like, oh, I've heard that. And you're like, well, I haven't though. It's like, but I feel like I have. And then you ruin everything for yourself.
And then I spare Peter on by going, no, Peter, it's good. We'll use it. And Peter's like, no, it's just a different song. I'm like, but Peter, we can use this. And that's where like having two people instead of one comes really handy when you're trying to make like an idea, because I think a lot of people who make music by themselves, say like if you're doing electronic music, you're just listening and judging everything you've done, and you have no yes man next to you going, no, finish the track.
Did you find...
and if two people like it, then that is a pretty good sign.
I mean, there's a lot of the cases when like and you'll write the songs and I'll listen to them, and there'll be ones which I'll pick up and go, oh no, I think that one's like really good, and you might not necessarily, it might not necessarily been the one that stood out to you that you thought was like your best song, but I'd be like, oh no, I can like hear something in there, like you can hear a direction for it to go, like, or an out there, like, oh yeah, that song's gonna have an amazing outro. I can just hear it now, you know. But you've got to, it helps to have the two people to
a little bit of positive,
pick these things out. A
little bit of positive encouragement goes such a long way when you're trying to like come up with an idea.
Definitely.
Because it's so easy to be like, oh well, I'm not a pro, I don't know what I'm doing, this isn't good. And then if you have somebody like walk in and be like, I really like that idea, it's like the confidence boost you need to go, yeah, do you know what, this is a good idea, I should carry on working on it.
It makes all the difference.
Yeah, also go, oh no, that's a really good bit there, but that should be the verse, that's the chorus.
Yeah.
To kind of hear, to just sort of hear it from a fresh angle and pick out what's really working.
So did you sort of like suggest alternate arrangements then for like some of Annie's like original ideas, or was it like a collaborative thing of saying, I've got these sections of like words and chords, for example, but like the arrangement is sort of up in the air of we'll get to that when we start putting it down properly?
I think Annie'll write songs with a like fully arranged and with bridges and interludes and outros and stuff. But
for the EP, I'd say all those songs were kind of fully written, and then the main thing was cutting them. So it was quite good about just tightening them up and just
I think like Flowers, for example, I think that one was it had like I think cut the verse half the length and the first chorus half length, and then there was probably like there might have been another verse and chorus that just completely went. It was like
pretty
one of those
sprawly
songs which kind of sprawled out a bit. It's like, right, there's something here, but let's like tighten it up.
But we've now, since making the EP or since writing those songs, started doing a bit of a different process where like Asa will make instrumental and then I'll write to it, or it's sort of more collaborative from the start.
Because Flowers is the only one on the EP which had a different origin. It wasn't a song that Annie had written fully herself, and then I came in. It was one where I'd made like a little instrumental bit, gave a bit of a mood board for sort of the vibe of the song, we're taking and it's the sound you hear at the start of the song is like a loop from just like a 1 second clip of a video of, I think we're just sort of playing guitar and we're singing, and there's this 1 second clip which just kind of had an interesting sound to it, and so I started it like we shouldn't be going to bed, but I was like, oh no, I want to like try, and then an hour later I had like this little thing. Yeah. And then I handed that over to Annie, and she turned it into a fully fledged song.
Yeah.
But that one had a bit of a different sort of origin.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I really enjoyed when I listened to it is that it's not just, because a lot of especially like in the indie and like sort of DIY realm, which is really sort of what you're coming from, and I don't mean that as like a diss, because it's the same as what we're doing. We're recording everything like our house and doing it all like pretty DIY as well. A lot of people it's like, quite simple sometimes, in terms of production. So what I really enjoyed on it is that, you've got double tracked vocals and stacked harmonies, and you've got all these like electronic layers, but you also got like, I don't know if you're super familiar with shoegaze, but I thought a lot of the guitar and keyboard sounds were quite shoegaze influenced, because you was talking about putting like distortion and saturation over, like stamping that onto parts with reverb.
That's just that's a lot of what that's just a lot comes from what like my early music making. It was just a lot of acoustic guitars, but then reverb, then distortion, really just sort of like destroy those sounds and layer things up. I mean, and I think it comes from the fact that neither of us are particularly
proud of our guitar skills, or
we're
covering up for.
We're sort of songwriters and producers, as opposed to musicians. That's first and foremost, and then but we can play a bit.
Yeah.
But it means that a lot of the complexities, the way to make complexity isn't from sort of writing like the most incredible guitar riff. It's from layering things on top of each other.
Yeah, so you're using
the intricacy there.
You're using the studio as your instrument, like, and Ableton as your instrument, not more than your guitar, like your instrument prowess in that sense, which is a really creative way of working. And you're probably going to be a lot better off for doing that in like terms of like a recording environment.
I guess we're working toward you're putting the time into sort of how a finished product sounds, rather than because I think we would love to be better at sort of performing our songs. We want it'd be nice to work out a way of
doing them live in some capacity, but we're now at a point where we've got no idea how to do that, because it's all just been so digital.
I suppose what you've got to do is you've got to listen to the way you've processed the guitars and then think, right, I need a pedal board with all the effects in a row that can do this in real time. But you sort of sign yourself up for that.
Or alternatively, you could look at getting, I don't know if you're familiar with like a launch pad or a clip-based thing, and then you could... Sorry, I'll let you go.
We've got a launch pad and got a keyboard to try and move it more into that realm.
Yeah,
but I think maybe we need to start simpler. I think my ambitions for like are a bit too big of like how we can sort of make it sound like the songs themselves but live, and like I think we need to start with like a simple song and then build it up from there.
Yeah, maybe like
it's in the pipeline for something to work on.
Yeah, so your goal going to be to focus on having a vocal and an accompanying instrument, and then build it from there. That makes sense, to be honest.
And I think probably have and probably just play the drum tracks sort of from the songs, but just have them sort of pre-recorded and try to trigger them.
Yeah, because a lot of
song, I think.
Like I'd say the vast majority of bands, even on a local level now, are using just I say backing tracks, but it's just like launching like certain elements are stems, certain elements you're playing live, certain elements might be loops, and that's like a lot more popular and accepted now. And I feel like almost to a degree, if you just go out with no production and layers, you're almost like at a disadvantage, because so many people do use all them productions and layering that, you know, you might as well do it. Especially like you say, if your confidence isn't necessarily on your guitar virtuosity and your piano virtuosity, you might as well lean into
Sadly
it.
not.
And also, like, you'll see like a band, in, say you've got 4 bands in like some kind of club or whatever. If one band goes on and has like drum loops and stuff, and they're nice and mix ready and they're real subby, and that's filling the room, and then the following band has a drummer on like a little jazz kit, his kick is not going to cut through that room like the previous band's backing track. And that's a lot of the time why you see so many bands having like all this like finesse, because even like on festivals, you'll have bands that have all this like extra stuff, or like singers and solo artists in like the pop domain are really guilty of having just so much on the backing tracks. And then a band will come on and play it fully live, and you'll go, they sound a bit rubbish now after that, because the other one sounded like the record, and then this band's, because obviously like with festivals, it's just the sound man just throwing the faders up. It doesn't have any of that like polish that the previous person who had tracks has.
Yeah, I think it's definitely an interesting phenomena, though, because I think we've seen that with a few, like, usually for bands that are the sort of support bands. Because I think if you're once they're the main headline act, then they'll probably get a band, bring a band. They'll have the resources to bring a band along. But if they're just supporting, then I mean, it's a lot easier as well, just logistically. If you're just like, it's usually like the singer and then a drummer, and then they'll have the instrumental track to sort of usually see.
It's quite common.
But it does kind of raise the question of like, where's the heart of live music? Like, what's the purpose of it?
And where do you draw that line?
Where's the line drawn? There's live music, and then there's like a album listening party.
That is very true there. And I know the sort of difference, like sometimes if you're at a gig and you're like, this is just the album being played out a speaker and somebody dancing around, it can be a bit,
and you don't want to I don't want to be like sort of gatekeepery about it. And I think there's I think it's important that these smaller, because this is the way that music is made these days, is by smaller artists in their bedroom. That's like, and so they're just translating their music onto into a live performance, and that's going to be different. That's
in the best way they can.
But I whenever I think about us performing, I'm like, but I would like to. I want there to be I want it to be sort of interactive from us in some way that we're doing things, but I don't know if that's if it's like, but what's even the point of if I'm playing something live, but it sounds the same as the same but a bit sloppier than it does on the album. What are you gaining from that compared to just sort of
it's an interesting question,
playing a pre-recorded thing.
So I've got some questions about Snuba, like the brand. Like, where does the name come from? And also, what's the story behind the artwork for the EP? Because, I'm just curious, like, how did you get there? Artwork can be very intimidating. We've always, we're always trying to do different stuff with ours, but, when you're not like graphic designers and like 3D artists, you're like, well, we've got these songs, but now, God, we've got to make artwork.
So the name to start with, we were kind of just sort of coming up with ideas. It was very like school project, like putting our names together and like in different ways and stuff. And we kind of spitballed with like some nicknames we have and kind of putting them together, and kind of ended up coming up with Snuba, and we just thought it kind of sounded silly. It'd be a good name to have to not take ourselves too seriously.
Put it in. I was like, but if you put it in all caps, it's just got. I just like the aesthetic of that.
basically we didn't want to overthink it too much, because I think trying to name projects has been the death of many many bands. So and I think ultimately when you name anything, like, people just accept that that's the name. Like, it's not as important as you think it is at the end of the day.
And there's so many bands that hate the names. Green Day is one of them. They're always going on record saying, I really wish we called our band something else. And there's a lot of them like that. But naming stuff's hard these days. You know, me and Mark, we equate it to like Xbox Live almost, because you're not competing with people who are signed to Sony. You're competing with everybody in the world. So you've got to try and come up with a name that nobody else in the world is using.
The less generic, the better.
Yeah, it's impossible.
Yeah, that was the thing as well. When we looked up and saw, like, oh, there's no artist in Spotify called Snuba. Yeah, that'll do.
Yeah, that'll do the job. Yeah.
It really is difficult, I think, to come up with names now. I think artists in the past had it a lot easier, because all they had to worry about, unless they actually got signed, was who's in like that region of where they are.
Yeah.
And you'll see like
and then as
I was going to say, you'll see like almost like usernames for a lot of the artists in the top 40 now, like with V's instead of A's, and then just you look at it, you're like, what's it meant to say? You know, like, and then they'll say it on radio. It's like, this is, you know, X word, and you'll look at it going, well, half of it's numbers and upside down letters, and I can't understand how anybody knows what it is without somebody telling you verbally, this is what it's called. Do you know what I mean? And that's what Snuba's good for, that, because you look at it and you just read it like you're meant to. Snuba, you can't really get it wrong, which is nice.
We thought of it. We were like, it's silly, but it's simple and effective.
Yeah.
And so we thought, right,
short and sweet.
That'll do. Let's stick to that.
Yeah.
And then as for like the album artwork and stuff.
So all the songs were written, I mean, coming on to about a year and a half, 2 years ago now. And so I just had them like on a little playlist on my phone, and I was about to leave the house and I was like, this playlist needs artwork.
Yeah.
And I just had this vision, like, because they're all quite diary-like songs, quite personal, very much about, like, they were all written in the space of 4 months and about that time in my life. So I took like the photos in our bathroom, like with the blue walls, and I just had this idea of like taking the photo in the mirror with just seeing the reflection like behind me. Took that photo, made it the cover of my playlist, and then I could never like stop seeing that as the artwork for it. And because that photo is taken from the time that the songs were written, which now we're quite a way apart from, like it's a year and a half later, I found it just impossible to disconnect those things.
It felt like it's tied to the story, to like the emotions and the story of the project, of the songs.
It's sort of like an artwork version of Demoitis, where you have a demo and you're like, let's record this song, and then it never gets better than the demo, and you're like giving up, like this demo's not it, but we can't do any better. It's sort of like you had that with the artwork and you thought, I'm going to embrace it because that's the artwork that, you know, you've associated with it. And you just think, why not just use it? Which I think that's a really good idea.
It also took me ages to realise that there was a phone in the picture, because I wasn't really thinking about what it was. I was just looking at the artwork, and then I was like, because. And then Peter was like, "There's a mirror there," and I was like, "Oh, it is like a mirror selfie." Really, I just, you know, I was looking at it really abstractly, and not really thinking about what the picture is. I was just looking at like the colours and the shapes, and like, you know, like you say, the rule of thirds of it, and just going, oh, that's interesting. And then Peter was like pointing and going, look, that's what it is. And I'm like, oh yeah, it is. I suppose I never really thought about what it was.
Yeah, that's what I liked about it, because I mean, just even the fact that my phone was the same colour as my bathroom, I was like, that's funny. And just the way that the picture just becomes those colours and shapes, and it's a bit confusing. Because
you'll know it's your bathroom, whereas I didn't. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's just that simple thing, looking at it going, you know, just not really thinking about what the picture is of, and it just looks aesthetically pleasing. So I know why you're struggling to like change from it, because it does have like an aesthetic thing about it that is good to look at.
And as you say, it suits the personal sort of diary sort of nature of it. So I get how you've landed there for your artwork.
Yeah, and we even took, like, the photo we've used kind of on our Instagram and things was just this cool photo we had as well, but we just didn't see that fitting with the music. We always saw that being potentially the cover for a different project, but one that we have not made.
Yeah, and also not the project that we'll be making next.
So
we were like, because by the time we were like putting it together for release and stuff, we've already started like working on a few other things, and we were like, and we'd always sort of seen the image that we have for like our Spotify image or Instagram image as like, this could be then like an album cover, but it's not what we're doing now. It's not what we're doing next, so we may as well just use it because it's a good image.
Yeah.
Do you want to
pop on Instagram?
Do you want to tease what you're doing next, or do you want to maybe just let people find you and like follow you and let them wait for it? Is that the goal?
We're yet to define it. We're just recording a bunch of songs, but don't have a time frame or a length.
Yeah, I think. Did you say did you throw out sort of like autumn time?
Yeah,
I mean, it's a very ambitious, but you've got to have goals.
Yeah, I would love to do another EP in like 6 months, like the end of this year, but I don't know if that's realistic.
Yeah, we've got a fair few songs already for it, and like. Vibe-wise, we've kind of going. I think we've got sort of like an idea of a sound, something a bit like
made a mood board.
Yeah, we've got a mood board playlist. Yeah, it's quite eclectic. But since the release of it, since we've sort of had people sort of saying nice things about it, all of a sudden I'm going, oh god, maybe we don't want to go like too different.
Yeah.
What if the people want? They're disappointed if it's different. But, yeah.
I think though you can't think too much about what other people want at a certain point.
No.
Yeah. But it definitely does. I mean, it's nice. When you hear that like the response and the positive response, you think, oh, I guess we are like doing something right. It's nice to have that kind of confirmation of like, oh no, we don't need to change, or it
motivates you to make more stuff as well. Some people might listen to it. That's really cool.
Yeah, so was this always going to be like maybe a stepping stone to like a passion project, something you want to continue, or was it like in its current form, was it like we'll put it out and we'll see what the response is, see if anybody's interested, and then that will let us know if we're continuing? Or was it more like you're like, no, we're going to do this, and regardless, we're just going to do it?
Yeah, I mean, we'd probably have kept making songs and kept writing regardless, but if we put it out there and gotten a terrible response and people said they hated it, we probably never would have released anything again. We would have kept trying.
Yeah, we definitely would have kept making music, though.
Yeah.
Like ultimately, it's something we do, but we were doing for fun and for our own enjoyment.
And as a creative outlet, and
and like things like the track list of it, like we spent a while like trying to work out like what we wanted how to do the track listing on it, and we went through a whole bunch of different options, but in the end just went back to our first one, which was the one where we felt it just had the best flow, even if like I think we kind of wanted to potentially have Cool Girls as like an opener track or somewhere more earlier on. Just we think it's one of like the most like the stronger like single type songs, but like in the end I think because it was just a project for us, and we thought we wanted that we want it as the closer, and we just decided I think so it's always been something just for us. I
think when you're sequencing something, you want to have a strong start and a strong end. That's always like the way that everybody perceives music to be. But there's a lot of albums that like start strong and just like die halfway through, which I think is fine as well, you know.
I mean, it depends on what your aims are for. Yeah, like because the truth is that like a lot of people, they'll start listening to an album, and
no matter how good it is, they'll get distracted and stop listening.
Yeah. So if you want to really put like your best foot forward and get your best songs, your catchiest songs heard, then it makes sense to sort of like front load the album.
Yeah. But you're saying that you haven't done that. Is that what you was saying?
No, yeah. We I think we decided in the end just to go for the track list that we thought
enjoyed listening to the most.
Yeah, if you're gonna sit down, put it on, listen from start to finish, this is the best track list for it.
We've just gone through the same thing where the song we're promoting at the moment is also the last song on our album, and we're like, why have we done this? Shouldn't it be the first song? If it's the one one that we've put the most effort into or that we're happiest with, and we're like, it's the last song. Don't know why.
Finish with a bang.
Yeah,
but it just comes down to your personal preference of like where you're coming from, like
how you listen to music as well.
And like how you like how do you want to feel about what you're putting out there.
So do you both sort of listen to albums over just jotting about different songs on, say, like a streaming service? Do you like to just listen to a project or an album like in full in that manner?
It's definitely something we've been doing more recently, I think, because once we thought we kind of reorganized our living room a bit and like set up our speakers and stuff, so we can
now just like put an album on to have like playing in the way that you'd put on a record or something. But also do listen to a lot of playlists, and it's a mix, I'd say. Like I get excited for album releases, and when an album comes out, like I will listen to it in full, repeatedly. But then it'll slowly sort of, my favorite songs will end up in playlists, and
and those become the ones that you then
cycle through
on.
I think with like the age of streaming, like I'm very album orientated, but sometimes you're like, I don't have time to go get a vinyl and put it on. I just need to hit shuffle on like a playlist that I've made of songs I like. So I do think that you can't just be, I get how people can not have the attention span for an album, but I feel like if you listen to albums, you can't just only listen to albums. I feel like it makes sense to have like a duality of, I'm going to listen to an album today or a fresh one when it comes out, and then like add the songs I like to whatever the playlists you have are. So that's what I do as well.
Yeah.
And make your playlist for your different moods
Right, everybody, that's been Snuba and their EP. Have My Head is on Spotify. Be free to check it out. Obviously, the song we've chosen is in the episode as well for Spotify listeners. Thank you, Asa and Annie, for coming on. Hope you had a nice time.
Thank you very much for having us.
It was great.
And where can everybody find you on socials and everything?
At Snuba Music, SNUBA Music on Instagram.
And
that's kind of
that's our main social. I think it's the album's on Bandcamp as well.
And we've got a visualizer on our YouTube now.
We've got a little music video for Cool Girl
on our YouTube as well. So Snuba Music.
Right, everybody, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.